Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Oh no, he's talking about feed again. Actually, no, he's not. But he could be. I just had a panic. You get flashbacks in your mind sometime to an expression or a sentence that somebody may have used months or even years ago. And for some reason, it just comes straight to the front of your mind and you think, actually, I'm going to check that out. Now, this was RO water. And it had a bit of feed left, there was a bit of feed left over that I put in with RO water rather than waste it. It was only mixed up yesterday, so it's relatively fresh. So I was starting out with RO water, with some more RO water with some feed in added. So obviously the first thing I needed to do is test the TDS. And it was relatively low. So I added my MSU fertiliser. I'm about to feed my mounts. And they've had a couple of sprays recently because I've been busy, which is just plain water. So they haven't had any food for a bit. So I was aiming at about the sort of 180 to 200 mark. So I put some feed in. Of course, because there was a little bit already in there, my judgment was a little off and it came out at 205. And I checked the pH and that was about 5.7, 5.8. And I wanted it up like 6.3 plus. So I did what I usually do. I added bicarbonate of soda and I got my pH up to 6.3, and then this sentence just shot to the front of my mind. And somebody once said, if you're using bicarbonate of soda to up your pH, have you ever tried rechecking the TDS afterwards? And that sentence just came up. Well, it's a question really. And the answer is now, yes, I have. And I put my TDS meter in there and it's gone from 205 to 340. That's dramatic. So the next thing that jumped straight to the front of my mind is what the hell is in that stuff? Because it's going in onto the roots of my plants and I want to know what it is. So basically we looked it up and it says what it is. It's sodium bicarbonate. Right. So now we go in and we start searching in on sodium bicarbonate. Is it harmful for plants? And it turns out it's actually pretty good for plants. But, you know, that sounds like a lot to me. So I thought, well, hang on, perhaps I ought to get a proper pH up. So I looked up the contents of a couple of these pH up things. Most of them are supplied for water that you're going to use for fish. But, you know, it does the same thing at the end of the day. So I thought, yeah, what's in that? Yeah? You see what I mean? And I've gone round full circle and actually come back to the fact that this is probably okay to carry on using, with the word of caution that it ups your TDS level and it is adding a substance into your feed that wasn't there before. Now my initial reaction was, if my TDS was 205 and it went to 340, that's an imbalance. I've put in a substance that's, you know, greatly increased an element or two or whatever of my natural balanced feed. Yeah? So then I had to go and look up, what has it done to the balance? Has it made upset the nutrient balance? Is my nitrogen now not going to work? What's going to happen to my calcium and magnesium? And blah, blah, blah. And it's very, very difficult to find out. When you're adding a substance in that's not part of the main elements in fertiliser, you've got a hell of a job to find out what it's doing. So I'm leaving it open-ended, but it's just a word of warning that the chances are, given the content of pH up, you know, the products that you can buy on the market, I mean, the one that I found that got the best write-ups was a product called ProTech, which is TEK, pH up. And that sounded like pretty good stuff. But when you look at what's in it to achieve the pH up, you're going to be adding a substance into your feed. And it turns out that there is no way to raise the pH of your water without adding a substance in. So you've got to find a substance that you're happy with. if you see what I mean. Now, wouldn't it be nice if my water started with a pH of something like 8 and I added my feed in and that actually brought it down to about 6.5? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Well, I could do that if I use my tap water, because that's about a pH of 8, but then that's got stuff in that I don't want. And it's also tap water, and it starts off with a TDS of nearly 300 of stuff that I don't want feeding my orchids. So it's catch-22 here. If I collect rainwater and it's pristine, clean, collected off a clean surface and stored in a clean container, the chances are it'll have a pH slightly less than 7. I don't know exactly, and I know it can vary. I know people who've done tests, and one lot of rainwater comes down and it comes down at sort of 6.8, 6.9. The next lot comes down and it's 6.7, and then some comes down and it's 6.9. So it does vary, but it seems to vary between 6.5 or 6 and 7. So it is slightly acidic to start with, and then you put your feed in and make it a lot more acidic. You know what the answer is? Somebody needs to evolve a feed that has all the nutrients and doesn't mess with the pH. They put something in it that makes it neutral, so that when you add it to your water, all it does is up the TDS and your pH meter doesn't move at all. Wouldn't that be wonderful? If somebody's going to say, oh, there's already some of that on the market, it's called so-and-so, so-and-so. That's why I do these videos. It puts the ideas out, and if people have done some research or have checked stuff out, they come back with some answers. I can then pass them on, can't I? Via the YouTube video thing. Anyway, all this is really, it's gone round in circles, and all I'm really coming back to the fact is that this is a basic substance that is capable of raising the pH quite dramatically. You certainly don't need much of it, but it does raise your TDS value considerably, and it's adding an element into your feed that I would class as an imbalance. And I checked out, you know, what would too much do, and you could get black tips on your leaves or burning of your leaf tips. In some cases it says you might get yellow patches. Trying to find out, well, how much is too much then? You can't find out. There's lots of these questions that I throw out that have no answer, or I can't find them anyway. So all I'm doing is putting a warning shot out that whatever pH up you use, which there's going to be people who are scratching their heads thinking, well, I don't even check my pH. Well, so be it, but I do. And as I said, I know the values I want, but I'm going to have to start watching the TDS value, because I've got what I call the sensitive plants, the things like Miltoniopsis and the set, really, the cooler, shadier sorts, the Masdevallias, Draculas. They don't want high feed, they want low levels. But they also don't want ridiculously acidic water added. Yeah, so somehow I've got to get a balance. Anyway, I'm going to carry on and use that. It's got a TDS of 340, which is higher than I want. And what I think I will do is I will add some more water. The trouble is I'm nearly out of water, but it'll keep a day or two without changing property. So I'm going to chuck some more water in there, knowing that my water is a good pH. It's up about 6.8, 6.9. So by adding some water in, I'm reducing the TDS and possibly raising the pH a bit as well, because I ended up with a pH of 6.3. I'd like to go a bit higher. The reason I go quite high with my pH for the mounts is a lot of them have got moss on the mount, which by nature is a little acidic. So by having a higher pH when the water goes in there, it sort of balances itself out. And that's not science, that's just a rough calc. Anyway, an interesting little hour spent searching around on the internet when, strictly speaking, I should have been doing other things like getting my talk done. Anyway, just some words about that substance, and generally speaking, pH up and pH down will add stuff into your feed. Yeah, and that stuff could set up an imbalance of the nutrients that are already there, the ones that have been specifically put in the feed to look after your plants. So, I mean, I've heard of people adding silica to their mix, and some people have sung the praises that it makes their plants a lot stronger. And I mean, one of the values of this stuff that it seems to portray is that it actually works like a fungicide to a degree. But that's when applying it to the plant, not around the roots, if you see what I mean. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. That's probably just worried everybody. And some people have probably said, I don't give a monkeys one way or the other. Anyway, obviously the total TDS value that you put on your plants is the one to watch. What's in it does help, knowing that as well, but the total value is the strength of what you're about to pour all over your roots. And with sensitive roots and things, that needs to stay low. So just watch what you're up to with that stuff. And I shall, from now on, I'll be trying to get a balance of, the amount I'm using to raise the pH is also going to raise my TDS, and I need a balance there. So I might have to start my TDS a bit lower from now on and balance the two out. So there we go, all good fun. Or not, as the case may be. See you next time.